Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the news that Nigel Farage has only bothered to attend about a fifth of the votes so far in Parliament, and he managed to mess up the actual vote in at least two of the ones he was there for. But when you consider the way things have been going for not just Farage, but his other Reform UK not so merry men, you can see why he gives Parliament a wide berth most of the time. Because I'd already said before that when you consider he was working a lot of jobs before becoming an MP, and we know that they were very lucrative jobs, and he hasn't actually scaled any of them back, it's not surprising he can't find time to do his work as an MP. I still can't find any evidence that he's actually been to Clacton or any evidence that he's setting up a constituency office there. But there are probably other reasons why he's not turning up to Parliament all that often either. Despite his claims that he and his buddies were going to shake the place up, nothing could be further from the truth. The likes of Farage and Tice in particular have been used to having their say on television, never having their lies called out or even their opinions challenged. They've sort of tread the boards like princes. They've spent years rocking up in front of a camera, saying their piece, and that's it. Why? Because the people filming them, the people broadcasting it, go, brilliant, this will be great for clicks, we'll get loads of views on this one. So they're not really motivated to call him out. Even Lee Anderson during the last Parliament was largely able to do the same thing because the government were happy pushing the same lines and certainly weren't going to contradict him. But Parliament is different now. Farage, Anderson and Tice have all had their nonsense either ignored or challenged in a way they just haven't been used to. Richard Tice had a couple of beauties recently. In his pro-fossil fuel lobby mode, he tried to attack Labour's plans for net zero. Oh, North Sea oil and gas is domestic production of fuel. We should be securing this. Otherwise, you're just going to make us colder and poorer. But he wasn't on television with a nodding dog asking his pointless questions. He was up against Ed Miliband, who explained there is no domestic production of fuel in the North Sea. It's all owned by multinationals who immediately sell it on the international market. We pay the same price for North Sea gas and oil that we do for fuels from everywhere else in the world. And that this was what meant our fuel bills went up so high, and that more renewables would produce cheaper and more secure energy. Tice simply doesn't get that sort of response on television shows. Now, of course, Richard Tice can just clip the bit where he asks the questions, edit out Miliband's response for his own promotional purposes, but he knows that others will include Miliband's answer and share that around social media as well. About a week later, Tice was at it again. Why aren't foreign prisoners being deported? He asked the Justice Secretary. Mahmoud stood up and said, they are. They're going to carry on being as well. Anything else? It's the same thing. Tice can edit his own question to show his followers he's asking the tough questions, but those questions come with a response in Parliament, and other people will share that response around the country. The problem with asking these questions in Parliament, they're now going to get responses from ministers which expose the nonsense in them. Then Leanderthal was stamping his little feet last week. He was complaining that despite getting 4 million votes, Reform UK are not entitled to select committee positions. Now, I have a great deal of sympathy with this argument on a philosophical level. I think representation in Parliament should be related to the popular vote one. So we should have electoral reform that represents that, because the power in Parliament is actually based on the seats won. So what you really want is that votes won translates into seats won, which it doesn't in our system. But the reality is it is based on seats won, and Reform UK just didn't win very many. And Anderson did not complain about that system during the last Parliament, did he? See, last week Anderson was blaming Labour for his party's exclusion, as if Labour have done this. Labour haven't done anything. No rules have been changed. In fact, I think the last time any rules changed on the appointments of select committees was 2010, where they went from, it used to be the party whips who assigned chairs of select committees. It's a very powerful position. And in 2010, the system was changed so that it became the chairs of select committees were elected by secret ballot, which was a very handy little rule during the last Parliament because it prevented Boris Johnson from burying the Russia report. But there have been no changes to the rules this Parliament. So the way select committees are appointed follows exactly the same rules as the last Parliament, where he had absolutely no objections. That's because he was part of the largest party and not only able to sit on the select committee himself, but he also got to basically choose which one he wanted to sit on. In fact, Anderson was unintentionally funny again when he was complaining on Twitter, because he presented a clip of him asking the most ridiculous questions of the Met Police Commissioner last year. And I remember it, he was putting his back in his box, although I think he clipped that bit out. He posted it as, oh, this is the sort of questions I was asking. I should be able to ask these questions. It's like, no, this is a good thing, because one of the benefits of select committees is that the vast majority of MPs who sit on them actually do a good job and largely keep party politics out of it. Let us not forget, it was a Conservative MP who trapped Suella Braverman as Home Secretary into admitting that the UK doesn't have safe routes for people to claim asylum. And he further got her to admit that actually, if you want to claim asylum in the UK, the way to do it is to get to Britain by any means possible, including a small boat across the Channel. A real example of holding the government to account without letting party political affiliations get in the way, or culture wars or anything like that. All away from the spotlight of the main Commons debating chamber, you actually get proper work being done by MPs. So the fewer MPs like Anderson that are involved, the less time gets wasted on absolute nonsense questions. But again, what is Anderson really complaining about? He won't get the extra money that comes with sitting on a select committee, and it's another reminder of just how little influence he now has with his new party. His limited experience in Parliament is becoming an MP as part of the largest party to retaining his seat as part of one of the small fish. The reason he's complaining is not because he thinks the system is bad. It's the same system. It's because he no longer benefits from the system. He doesn't like suddenly being insignificant in the Palace of Westminster. Reform UK's, of course, it's not that they can do nothing. They could attend to their constituents' needs, but they can write letters to ministers. They'll get a response at some kind. It might not be the response they want, but they'll get a response. They can ask questions in debates. Those questions, of course, risk a government minister standing up and making them look ridiculous, as they have with Tice recently, or even largely ignored, as Starmer did with Farage's question at PMQs this week. Starmer did answer the question, he didn't ignore it, he answered the question, but he did it in a way that put the emphasis on the Conservatives, didn't give any credence to the point the walking ashtray was trying to make, and that will probably be the last question Farage gets for a while. He's got no automatic right to ask a question at PMQs, so it's down to the lottery of additional questions if he can be asked to put his name in the hat. Which is all Farage turns up for. That's all he actually turns up for when he thinks he can say something that will be filmed and good to clip and put on social media. That's when he'll drag himself out the pub and crawl onto the green benches for the chance of maybe being able to actually stand up and have his say. That's why he's attended so few votes, because most of the time he hasn't got anything to say on the matter being voted on. So he can't be asked then. And every time he does turn up and actually get to say something or try to say something, he's not going to find a grateful nodding dog going along with it because it's good for clicks. He'll find a minister that can't be asked with him and either puts him back in his box or simply ignores him. In fact, he has rather less attention paid to him in Westminster than he did in the European Parliament, where he also didn't turn up very often, but where, of course, it was also possible to at least call him out as a liar. So after years of Farage being able to have a platform where he had little to no challenge, is it any wonder he's a bit sparing with his attendance at Parliament, where the vast majority have got absolutely no reason or inclination to play along with his toxic little games? But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe as well. And if you'd like to support the channel further, you can join for memberships. Thanks for watching. And until next time, I'll see you later.